Hello, and welcome to a new episode of the BIMvoice podcast. My name is Petru, and today we have the pleasure to talk with a BIM consultant from Chicago, United States. Welcome, Andrew Baranowski. How are you
Oh,
doing?
Petru. Very good. Thanks for having me.
It's really nice to have you here. Uh, what don't we start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, well, let's see. Well, as is relevant for your podcast here, I guess we could say I started in the construction industry about 20 years ago as a cabinet maker. So I'm a member of Chicago Carpenters Union Local 1027, and I did that for 7 years and got my journeyman certificate. Then I left the industry for a short time to work in manufacturing, which maybe we'll come back to because understanding manufacturing processes is extremely relevant to things like prefab and offset manufacturing these days. And then that didn't last too long. Then I found myself back in construction on the design side, suddenly dealing with low voltage systems, so structured cabling, audio visual, and things of that such. And that was really my re-entrance to construction is when my interest in BIM started, just taking all that experience as a carpenter and understanding the daily hassles and just problems you would deal with, always thinking there's got to be a better way to do this. And it just sort of gradually built up from there, from learning the technologies to wanting to dig deeper and understand the processes and really understand the problems and solutions and what BIM is. And in a nutshell, that brings us to why I'm here talking to you today.
Yeah, but what did you do from around 2010 up until now? And what are you doing today in your job?
Okay, let's start. Well, way back when, if we're talking 2010 or even earlier, I was really learning design. And as we all know, various 3D design tools were starting to become prominent on the marketplace, which had a lot to do with really because suddenly the computers had become strong enough to support them. So that was becoming a reality in the workplace. It was my understanding of how do we take these tools and apply them to the work we were doing. And then also, as I mentioned, I'm working with low voltage, and none of the tools on the market really cover the needs of low voltage. So I had to get very creative and very inventive and sort of figure out how to manipulate these tools to do that, which I think after 10 years has been very successful. I've watched many of my colleagues and as I've progressed, many of our younger new grads come in and learn to do this, and we've been very successful with it. But then that's the immediate part. So you learn how to use the tool, but then there's the bigger question of what is BIM and why are we doing this? And that goes beyond simply how do I operate a tool. So we need to get into the theories, the what's highs, and the what's whys and hows. And so I began to dig into that pretty deep, looking for answers, which it always seemed like the people were asking a lot of questions, but pretty much no one had any answers. And then where that led me was about 2014. I had learned of the BIM Master's program at Middlesex University in London. So I applied for that, and the short story, in 2017, I became the first person in the United States to get a degree in BIM. And so that's really
Congratulations.
yeah, thank you. And so that's really when we're saying I'm a BIM consultant, it's really me taking all that knowledge I gained and applying it in a very practical, real, usable way to hopefully provide solutions for our clients and help everyone along this BIM journey. So how can we do it better? Why are we doing this way? Why hasn't it been working? And just, what does it take to do it?
I understand. But was that master's program was practical? Could you take what you learned there and practice in your job, or was mostly theoretical?
Well, it actually answers both. So the important thing to understand about the course is we did not use any software. So we were really dealing with the management aspects, the legal aspects, the people aspects of it all. And it is the utmost practical because that's really here in Chicago, we've been building a service based around just that, where we call it Bim Master Planning. Now, that title isn't so important, but what we're doing is I go to deal directly with the owners and the clients from their end to help them understand what BIM is how it can benefit their operations, and what it takes to actually make that happen. So this is all long before they've ever gone and spoken to an architect. This is about getting their internal organization together. So again, what what do our people need to know? How do they need to apply that? What do we need to do to our legal agreements? What is it we're trying to accomplish? And then finally, what supporting tools are we going to need to do all that? So the tools will come into place, but not until the end. And then once all that's together, then we go and we start talking to our architect and our project team. Because otherwise, what happens is, and we experience this all every day on pretty much every single project, is the client just says, oh, hey, I want BIM, nothing. And you're completely left to guess. And so let me explain. So if a new client knocked on your door one day and said, yeah, I'd like you to build me a school. You say, okay, great. Let's talk. Let's sit down. Tell me about what you want. You say, oh, no, just give me a school. I saw on your website you did a school last year. Just give me a school. You would see some red flags. You say, well, wait a minute. Hey, hang on. We need to learn a little more about this. What is it you're trying to accomplish? Do we want college? Are we talking, grade school? How many classrooms? Does it need a science lab? And you'd start looking for information like that because you just expect that. And it's the same thing when someone comes up to you and says, BIM, no one should just be going, okay, great, we'll give you BIM. We should stop. We need to really talk this through and think about it. Let's start with, what are you hoping to accomplish with this? And have you prepared your organization to actually make use of that? And then that's the other problem too. We can put the documents together. We can give you the right answers. We can, survey the tools out there and give you our recommendations on those. But if your organization isn't set up to do all this, as soon as we hand it to you, it's not going to work either. So those are just the challenges. And doing that, we're really trying to make life easier for everyone. So, if you're with the architect or the engineer or the contractor, by the time this gets to you, you're going to have stuff all detailed out, nice and neat for you in the proper documentation format where you can flip through it and say, okay, I see what I'm being asked to do here. I can understand, how do I need to resource this? What's this actually going to cost me so I can give an accurate price to my client? And now I know what is it I'm actually being asked to deliver at the end of this project. And it just enables success for everyone.
I understand. Can we call this a BIM strategy or BIM execution plan for a specific project or for an entire organization?
It's not a BIM execution plan, because a BIM execution plan is one specific document related to a specific project. But this is definitely an overarching BIM strategy at an organizational level.
Okay, that's interesting. Is this something happening at a large scale? Are many organizations in the US interested in this?
It is increasing. At this point, the answer is no, but that is simply due to a lack of awareness. When you get a hold of the right people and you ask them, well, hey, how are you preparing your organization for BIM? They look at you kind of confused, like, what do you mean? I don't know, a year or so ago, I had one client, they looked at me as dead serious and they go, well, doesn't my architect do that for me? It's like, no, that's not your architect's job at all. This is stuff you need to prepare. So the first part is just helping people be aware that they need to do it. And then just, okay, so now they're aware they need to do it. Well, they have no clue how to go about doing it. And that's really where I come in. So to go back to your question, there's not a lot of people doing it yet, but I will say over the last 2 years, the interest level has gone up exponentially. Where 2 years ago, I would tell everyone, hey, we're doing this and blah, blah, blah. And they would just, who cares? I don't want, why would we care about that? Where now, on a fairly regular basis, I'm getting a cold call either from another Arab office or someone I had spoken to 2 years ago and say, that thing you were telling me about, well, tell me more, and something's starting to connect. And it's like, okay, so there's a very slow burn to make this happen, but I just see no one's necessarily turning me away anymore. Everyone's saying, well, tell me more. Let's think about this and let's understand it better. So it's a very positive indicator. And I think just as BIM is really just becoming standard practice now, what I also see is when the clients are coming to me, they've heard about it and they've heard that they're supposed to be getting all these benefits, and they see their contractors using it, and they're starting to think, well, wait a minute, shouldn't we be getting a little more out of this too? So they're starting to think through it and you go, okay, why aren't we getting more out of it? And again, so that's where I would come in to help them understand that and help, hopefully take them down that journey.
I understand, and that is really positive, like you said, and that is happening here as well in Europe and Norway. And in Norway, more often than not, people know, organizations are aware about. Most of them are implementing a BIM strategy, especially private customers or private contractors, private companies. Uh, I'm not really sure about municipalities. I know the biggest state agencies, they are doing this. They are very aware. They have their own strategies. They are doing a really good job. It's there. It's still enough to do, but they are on the right track. Um, it was really funny when you said that someone is coming to you and just tell you like, yeah, we want to do BIM. This was something that our guest from Sweden said exactly the same. Like he's having some meetings with some customers or clients, and they are saying exactly the same. Give me BIM. I want BIM. I want to do BIM. What is this BIM? Tell me. Can you please us? Can you please tell me with your own words what is BIM for you?
Well, let's back up with that one touch. So part of my journey in BIM to get to the bottom of this and find answers and help bring it back to people, what I learned is that for a good 20 years or so now, there's been a group of people, very smart, dedicated people who put a ton of work into developing what is really the modern BIM process we're using today. And really, they did an outstanding job. So that goes from Project Avante to the British BS 1192 standards and to the new ISO, which just came out in 2018 and which is getting fabulous adoption worldwide. So that work, it's all done. But what they didn't do so well was really getting the message out to everyone, or let's say the people that need to hear it first, that is the owners. So so the people that really kicked this whole thing off, they just never heard it. And so that's a problem. So it's like, okay, we need to take the marketing out in a whole different direction. So people like me, like, yeah, we get it, but that on itself isn't very helpful. And then, so to your actual question, so what is BIM? BIM BIM is a process. It's a process for how we generate, manage, and reuse the data that is generated during design, construction, and operations of any built asset. And then there are supporting tools and all sorts of nifty and fun features that we can sort of tack onto that, that we all know, be it 3D modeling and augmented reality and, field devices and stuff like that. That's great. But at the heart of the matter, it's a process for efficiency. So it's not about doing things quicker, it's about doing things in a more efficient and thought out manner. So one of the issues too, when you're doing clients, it's naturally they hear about it and they say, okay, that's awesome. Give it to me next week. And it's like, no, 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 no. This is something. Yeah, exactly. But this is something you say, no, you know what? Let's take our time. Let's really think this through. Because if you put out the wrong equation, it's not going to work. And that's what this is about. It's really about getting things right the first time. So you have to think about that. You want to test it. You want to vet it. You want to double and triple check it. And then when you're certain, let's put it out on the street. Because if we rush it, we're just going to create a new mess. And then people are saying, oh, BIM is good. Well, no, BIM actually works great when you let it.
Yeah, completely agree with that. And it's is not something that like for BIM to happen, like for an organization to successfully adapt BIM and start using it. It's not only up to them, not only the organization. Like it's a common effort. Like it's not. We are just a part, right? If you are a designer or a constructor, a general contractor, right, or an owner, right? We are just a part, a wheel in this system, right? We need like for BIM to be effective, all of us needs to adopt BIM, right? We cannot do only at a level. That's what is happening, right? With the designers going forward, using most advanced tools. But like you said, the owners have no idea why they need it, and they don't use it. They don't require in contracts, right? So for this, we need the openness and collaboration and cooperation with all the other parts involved in the process. But more so, what does this mean? Like, we need a cultural change. We need to change the way we know we do things. You cannot do things the same way. Like, it's a little bit radical mindset change to go about, right? So it's not something that you can do in 1 week. This is actually something that many owners or many people involved in this don't really understand, because like you said, I am this is one of the reasons I started this podcast, to have guests that can showcase and talk about their experiences, and to help to understand people why they need to get involved and why they need to change the ways they are working right now. And for this to happen, like, we need involvement, but we need patience as well. It's not something like you just take a software, like from today we are using Revit or ArchiCAD or Vectorwork or something, like, just start doing it. Yeah, that's easy to do. But when you need to do all these changes, like, you need to have a strategy, like, and this is the catch 22 thing about this. Like, if we, like, if you go and talk like I just told you about to a client, you will just scare him or her away. They will run, like, because it's too much information. It maybe it's too steep and scary, right?
That happens sometimes. Yes. Again, people have heard that BIM is good, but what they essentially think is that they're going to purchase a software license and it's going to fix their problems. And then I come in and, one of the first things, like, okay, well, show me what your legal agreement says about BIM. And they're mystified by that. Well, why? Why would we do anything with our legal agreements? And it's like, well, because now you're talking about the management and ownership of data throughout the building lifecycle for the next 30 years. Construction, this whole project is going to be done in 2 years. So that contract only covers 2 years of 30. So we need to start thinking about that. When your GC is done and hands you the keys and you wave goodbye, and you don't have ownership of the very things you need to make them work for you, there's a problem there. That's a big problem. So just things like that. So yeah, it is a lot. You need someone that's very dedicated to it. There have been instances where people have started down this journey, and halfway through they start to really understand the effort that's behind it, and they're kind of, what, on second thought, maybe we won't. And it's like, okay, well, think about it. We already started here. We can always come back to this, because you just have to have someone that's willing to see it through.
Yeah.
But the message is always, well, if you see it through, it's been proven time and time again. There's more than enough case studies out there. There's more than enough real world examples. Look at what Heathrow Airport's been doing for years. Look at the Crossrail project. They're going to be using this on high speed too. The University of Western England in Bristol, and on and on. So it's not that everyone has achieved some high level of perfection, but there's people out there sort of working their way up this mountain that's saying, you know what, we're still only at, like one level up, but even in the early days, we're already seeing enough results to tell us that it's worthwhile to move forward and work on improving what we've already done.
Yeah.
So that's very powerful, because you don't have to wait till you're at the very end. It's that, okay, we're like 10% into this, and everything's already looking good. So let's just keep going.
Yeah, exactly. And not only that, but maybe like even 5 years ago, it still was a question mark. If, is this going to work? But right now, I don't have any doubt about this. This is happening, and those who are not involving themselves are just going to lose the most out of this, because there are already too many actors pushing this forward at all levels, and it's happening. It's not happening how I would have wanted or wished to happen, but because it's so complex, it just needs to take time. It is how it is, but it's happening. I don't have any doubt regarding this.
Oh, absolutely. And I think part of it too is we see an awful lot of people all over the world putting an awful lot of effort into this stuff. And when you think about it, if BIM didn't work or it was just a fad or something, it would have disappeared a long time ago, because we started at, say, 2010. So we're 10 years down the road, and the effort and the resources being put into it has only increased exponentially. So maybe everything hasn't gone perfect, and maybe everyone hasn't hit everything the right way, but the fact that there is so much going on in this area, and it's clearly only going to grow, well, that tells us some very positive things. And so it's our job to get out there and help people out and educate them in the best way we can. And we're all going to make some mistakes along the way. You go and you find out some idea you had. Oh, maybe that doesn't work after all. Maybe there's a better way to go about it. But that's okay, because again, it's such a new thing. But we see there's only going to be more of it as we go. So right now there's more pie than there is people. So there's plenty for everyone.
Yeah, that's true. But we need to be aware about, like, it's us to need to make the effort to grab that pie. I'm seeing, otherwise I see these tech giant companies. I don't know if you are aware about, but dipping, they are dipping their toes in in the construction industry. I'm talking about Google, Amazon. Uh, I heard Amazon bought a prefab company, and they are doing some. They are trying to put some resources in this. So, like, we might not have unlimited time to figure this out on our own. So, yeah, yeah. I'm just saying.
Well, no one has unlimited time, and yeah. So all these big tech companies are putting something into it. But what I'm always looking at closely is, well, what are they actually doing? Are they designing a tool? Okay, well, great. Well, a tool has defined limits to it. What can you do with it? What can't you do with it? That may be great. And then also, how does that tool fit in the process? So you need to think in terms, well, okay, maybe a tool speeds up this one immediate task, but how does it help facilitate our process start to finish? And in some cases, actually in many cases, what always concerns me when I just see people looking to speed up a task. And well, that's great for right this moment, but in 2 years from now, that's really hasn't gotten you anywhere new, and you still have the same problem. So the question is the problem that we can't do the task quick enough, or is the problem that our process isn't getting us the results we need them, how we need them?
Exactly. No, I was not talking about tools. Like, I just can make a visual exercise, imagination exercise, and watch these prefab elements just sent with the Amazon car and some robots, and assemble them, and you have the house. Why not? So you have the whole process there figured out. So I don't think they look only for tools. They try to find some solutions actually right there in the inefficiency of how we do things. Like not we as a people only, but like all these involved parts in the entire process, from design, from concept to use the project, to maintain it. Like, we are not effective at all, right? So yeah, there.
Okay, well, then that sounds, based on what you just described, like they did look more at the process. So if we have prefab going on and some sort of robotic assembly thing going there, well, that's a whole new ballgame then.
This is just an idea. I'm saying, if they start with that, like, they don't forget, they started. What was they started with? They started with something very, very simple. So, and they come up so long, right? And yeah, I'm just saying it might be something even more revolutionary than this.
You're probably right. Whenever it comes to anything BIM, I'm always going under the assumption that once I hit the 2-year mark on it, there's a good chance it's obsolete because BIM is still so young and maturing at such a rapid rate. So there's documents I've written for clients, there's things I use internally, and I think that wasn't that long ago, but then I pull it up and it's 3 years. I'm like, you know what? This is totally out of date. Like when I wrote it, it was cutting edge, but now suddenly like, wow, isn't terribly good anymore. And and that's hard too, because you have to just assume that, okay, what I do right now is going to be almost obsolete instantly, and that's kind of a hard pill to swallow. And then yeah, if you see Google coming into the place and what are they doing with the technology and the AI, and there's all these other moving pieces, and really, we're going to go back 10 years ago, I could more or less keep up with what was going on in the industry, but now so much has happened where it's splintered off, where you have AI and you have drones and you have all the the mixed reality stuff and the tools and all this. You can't be an expert in all these areas now, because now, like an era, we'll have people that just specialize in the AR portion, or we'll have people that specialize in laser scanning. I have a good overall knowledge of that, but to really get into the nitty gritty, these are things you have to do all day, every day on your own. So no one person can really take it all in. And so that's a challenge too. So you have to be able to pull in those right resources that you need it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very complex. It becomes, like I said, it wasn't enough that we were so fragmented and so many actors and parts and stakeholders involved in the entire process. Now we get even more tools and technology, right? But do you see in your company or in where you work in your country in United States? Do you see practical use of artificial intelligence and machine learning in our industry?
Oh, I see a lot of people talking about it now. Now, when you say practical use, do you mean as it's in the field being used on a live project, or?
Yeah, not only like getting some results using these tools, like something practical. Yeah, not only studies, right? Because
Yeah.
studies, I know there are many.
Now the AI, I mean, to that, I see a lot of people digging into it, and there's a ton of work on it. That isn't my area of specialty. But as far as like, boots on the ground, people utilizing it, I haven't seen anything specific that's jumping to mind, although I'm sure someone's going to send me an email to prove me wrong on that. And please do, because if that is happening, I want to know. What I am starting to see is robotics come into play in a much more real way, at least in say a beta testing capacity. But it's pretty clear that really we're just a couple years away from that being a very real thing. It's just a matter of, you know, my guess is that they just have to get the machines durable enough to be on site and sort of work all day, every day, from out of the testing lab. But then the other question too is, okay, we're gonna use a robot to build this building now, but we're still back at the office designing it. So now we have to learn to design in a way that the robot can ingest the data and understand how to apply that in the field. So that tosses our traditional design process out the window, because it simply doesn't, the whole design intent thing doesn't apply. We need to design specific to, and that's the question too, is going to be specific to this robot, is going to be for robotics, and how do we assemble that information? How is it unpacked? And how will that affect our efforts or the design? So there's a lot of unknowns there, and none of that is insurmountable. I imagine in a few years it'll be very standard practice. But as far as, a designer with 20 years of experience having done that, everyone who does it is going to be doing it for literally the first time, no matter what their knowledge level.
Yeah.
So there's obviously a steep learning curve there.
Yes, it is. We mentioned about the owners that they need to learn more to to learn more about BIM, about why they need to adopt it, about how they need to implement the BIM strategy at organizational level and such. Do you see any other challenges? Like, what are other challenges you see? Why BIM is not getting adopted at quicker speed? This only if you think that things could go quicker, or you might be your opinion might be like, yeah, things are going just fine. I don't have anything against that.
There's a lot of answers there because I think you have to look at it by region and by sector. So in a lot of Europe and some South American governments places, you have government mandates for implementing BIM, which has usually been based on the BS 1192 standards or something similar. And now that's all going into the ISO. So that has really push the adoption of BIM in the best way. Now, here in the US, we're never going to have anything like that just because that's how we work.
Why?
So,
Why are you saying that?
because that's just how the US is. We're never going to have a federal mandate that everyone has to use BIM. It's just, that's more of a political discussion, and let's not even get into that here. um, but at least from the US perspective, so what we see is the contracting side has been the quickest and most eager to adopt this. And that's really when we're talking about the tools, because it's so beneficial to them in the field. They can adopt some technology quickly and save 10, 15% on the job, turn it over 30 days earlier or whatever. Now that's just using new and improved tools. That doesn't mean they know anything about the process. Frankly, they're not getting anything on the process. They're just doing that because it benefits their bottom line, and that indirectly benefits the client because it's saving them money too. And then the architects took a little longer to come around to it, but the architects are very keen on it because the nature of their work and the 3D modeling, it's just a much more logical way to do that and visualize and present their work. And then I found really the engineering side is still fairly resistant to it because we have this thing called design and intent where you don't really do it. You just say, well, I want this to go from point A to point B, and it's up to other people to figure out. And that doesn't really fit into the BIM process very well. And that's a pretty hard change to bring about. So we see this very uneven adoption. Oh, and then of course, as I've said several times already, the most important is the owners, and they're the ones that have the least information on BIM whatsoever. And that's really the problem right there. It's matter how do you educate these people who really have up to now have had no role really in the construction process other than signing a check, or they're there, but they're there in such a removed way where now you're saying, okay, you need to be involved in this hands-on, let's go. And they're like, what? That's not our job. We have, that's what we pay people to do. So it's such a crazy mindset across the board. But still, nonetheless, we do see people who are willing to do it. And as we say, well, maybe it's still a very small portion of projects around the world. If we look every 2 years, that number is growing exponentially. So,
Yes.
so it is coming around. And again, that's why you started your podcast, and that's why you're talking to some guy in Chicago, not because BIM is a myth or it only kind of works in some places, because it's been proven in enough cases that BIM can and will work anywhere in the world. So yeah, we have a cultural difference, but at the end of the day, that doesn't affect construction. We still need to put that bridge up. We still need to make this refurbishment. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not only about putting that bridge there or that building there, but where the biggest improvement and the biggest win at the end of the day is going to be in the maintaining the building, because you will have a way to operate that building much more knowingly. Like, you will have the data you will need to operate it. This is the most important part, actually. Like, that is very how is done today. It's a very inefficient way. It's very difficult to navigate, to find documents, and very difficult for someone new, someone without experience, right? But when you will have a 3D model where you have every data you needed and you just search for something and it just pops up into your screen and you can get in a dashboard all the information you need to operate that. Or if something gets destroyed, you find the piece you need to replace it there. Like there, where we get there, I think there is we're going to succeed at a very high level.
Oh, absolutely. And that's really where I'm trying to get all of my clients at any point. Now you show them that, you take a tablet or a smartphone and they instantly get it. They're like, yes, I want that. And then they turn to walk out the room and say, give me that in 2 weeks. And it's like, no, that's what I just said. You got to pull them back and say, no, you need to tell me what you need here. Like I can make a pretty good educated guess, but you need to tell me specifically. I need to be talking to your people in the field. I need to know, what assets are you maintaining? What is it you're really trying to accomplish here? And then specifically too, every client has a different operational infrastructure, because they might outsource some things, certain things they maintain in house. So even though obviously everyone's, looking at their electrical panels and their HVAC systems, well, obviously, but who's responsible for what? And how do you go about that? And what information have you gathered? And then is there other information you don't have just because it's been too laborious? So a while back, I was speaking to a university up in the state of Minnesota, and they showed me very clearly that whenever they get a new piece of gear in, that there's going to be some sort of, asset tracking or asset maintenance on. They have a sheet of paper with some check boxes on it, and they take their pencil and they write in the information and it goes in a filing cabinet. And that's
Awesome.
how they do it. And they insisted, and that was as far as our conversation went, because I said, hey, it works great. Okay, they said it works great. What do I know? But it's like, but for the people that want to get beyond that, that can see that maybe there's a more efficient way, that still all needs to be defined very specifically, and that's my earlier comment where you want to take your time with this. You don't want to be general about it because so much effort goes into it, because you say, okay, we're going to do all this and we're going to give your people the right tools and have this information. Well, what happens, you know, you're 6 months into operations and something happens and your person goes out to the field and they pull it up. And, it turns out there were two key pieces of data that we weren't given. So it was never built in there. Well, now what would have been very simple to do during design is a major task to go through retroactively. So that's why think it through. What are we trying to accomplish and what do we need to accomplish that? And oh yeah, have we tested it 3 times to make sure that, because we're assuming this is new construction or something. So it's really going to be a few years until something is truly breaking down and you absolutely need that information, by which time it's just way too late.
What more can we do to how can we get to the ears of people that need to listen to this more?
Well, to start, you can do a podcast, which is awesome. It's a matter of uh, getting out there and talking about it. So the last year or so, I've been starting to go out and speak a lot. So yes, if anyone wants me to speak at their conference, please drop a line or whatever. And just it's just a general awareness, because no one is going to wake up one day and say I need this. And when I've done this for real, it's been a year to 2 years of discussions just to get a signed contract. That's how long it takes them to get a comfort level. So it's a very slow burn, and it's just a gentle persistence, because you can't force anyone to do it. They have to be truly interested in doing it. And I've seen that too, where someone where people have tried to sell someone this and they don't understand what they're purchasing, and by the time they're up to their knees, they're really freaking out because they're saying, wait, I'm just not interested in this. Even though it will be very good for them, if they're not interested in pursuing it and taking it through the end, that's not going to happen. But still, nonetheless, every person we can talk to, every person we can run this through, and just keep getting the message out there, because this is the big missing piece of the puzzle. Because once the owners start requesting things in a certain way, everyone else will fall in line, because that's really how it goes. The owner is, whether we're architect, engineer, contractor, they're coming to say, we're going to pay you to do X, Y, and Z. And we go, okay, you're paying us to do this, and sometimes from our perspective, we even go, that doesn't make sense. Are you sure that's what you want? And they go, yeah, we're sure. We're paying you for it. You say, okay, this is what you want, so we're going to give you just that. So if we have an owner coming to us with a well-written EIR saying, okay, here's how I'm going to use these models. Here's the assets my people are taking care of. Here's the specific data we need in each of them. And oh yeah, we're going to use unit class 2015 and on and on and on, and they say, oh, okay, you know what? We can do this for you. Let's get on it. And what I see too is there's an awful lot of people in the industry that would love to get that and love to pursue that kind of work too. So that would really create a win-win situation for everyone.
From asset owners, customers you had or you have, do you have also state agencies or municipalities or how it's called, public agencies, or only private entities or organizations?
Oh no, it's across the board. So the U.S. naturally, we have these 50 states, which quite often one state is larger than a European country. So just when you're dealing with sheer volume here, we've got it. So there are things that would go from there's federal building and contracts. Then each state will have its own specific entities and such, and even down to the local municipalities. Now, actually, I'm going to contradict myself a bit here. The very There have been BIM mandates in the United States. Actually, the very first place in the entire world to mandate BIM was the state of Wisconsin, which is just 90 minutes to the north of me. And I'm not dissing on them, but the state of Wisconsin isn't what you think of the most progressive place all the time. So it was really weird to hear that. But but when they put that out, which was some years ago, what they were really saying was use a 3D modeling tool, because at that time that was the extent of the knowledge. So we see that. So there are things like that, but to help them through with this whole data thing, its operations, I gotta be careful what I say. Last week I was on a call with you know a governmental body from a major city in the U.S. And their message is, we're going forward with BIM. This is where it's at. It's not stopping, and they're looking for help doing that. They already have projects in motion where they're really just diving in, and I think there's a certain recognition there that they don't have all the answers, but it's just time to move. And so the idea is, okay, how do we take what you're already doing and build on it and progress you? Because we're not going to get it magically right the first time. It's probably going to take a couple projects, and then we also have to understand the distinctions between the different organizations within that government. So transport and public works and things like that. So each one will have their own specific requirements. So that's a massive ball of things to think about. But yeah, we see that, and that's no mandate or anything, mind you. That's just this organization saying, hey, this is where we're at, got to do it, and the recognition that it's the best way to go.
That's good. That's good that there are entities interested in this. That's very good,
Yeah,
especially if
and
it's big.
I think we're gonna. Well, actually, I know we're gonna see a lot more of that. So my concern is always people running out and buying a software license and thinking that is the answer. Where yes, I'm a carpenter, so right over here behind me, you can't see in the closet, is all my tools. So I need those tools to do my job. But those tools aren't what makes me a good carpenter. It means I know anything about carpentry. They just enable me to do my job. So I still had to go to school for this and learn the concepts and the principles and understand why I do things a certain way. And then you turn on the tool and take your piece of wood and put it through. And so that's a way, It's like, okay, it's great that you want to rush ahead with this now, but I need to get you to slow down and really think it through and let me help you, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it should be the way. Yeah, we don't want to rush into it. It will get overwhelming and just give up.
Right. Well, at this point, like with this client in particular, it's pretty clear they're not going to give up. But it's like, well, okay, how can let's avoid as many mistakes as possible? You know,
Not
because
possible.
well, so there's a certain matter because reality is, the people leading this charge, you know, th- they've heard about this stuff, they've done some research, but not everyone is like me where they've gone and got a master's degree in BIM. So they're just not that deep into it. So, you or I, maybe we have a passing interest in something for it. So we've read about and we know a little about it, but we're not there doing it all day, every day. We don't recognize some of the more subtle pitfalls and traps there. So, that's what I'm trying to do is identify them and say, I know it sounds like this makes sense, but let's think about it. That may not be what you want to do, or maybe there's a better way to think this through. Or again, always, let's define what is it we're trying to accomplish. Because we just say, yes, we want to do BIM because it's going to be great for our operations. Well, yes, but let's define how it's going to be great for our operations. What does that mean to you? Does that mean, you know, you won't need as many people because they're going to be able to be more efficient? Does that mean, you're going to save money at the year end? Does that mean, you know, all of your techs are going to have AR goggles, so now they can operate better out in the field. We need to just understand what that is.
Do you, because we talk a little bit about what can we do, what more can we do about this? Do you have in mind, are there any other resources for people just to learn more about and I don't know, like other podcasts or I don't know, YouTube channels, or how should people go about this if they are not committed yet or they don't have funds to pay for this? But they are interested. How people can learn more about this?
Where do we start there? Let's start with Bimdictionary.com. So that is, I would say, the most agnostic source of BIM knowledge there is out there. It's run by Bilal Sukar, and he's down in Australia. He was a frequent lecturer in my classes at Middlesex, and it's a truly global agnostic platform for exchanging BIM knowledge. And then he does something that's called the BIM initiative. And so
Yeah.
he does a lot of great research, and he has this amazing way of taking topics in BIM where you look at it and you think you see everything there is to it. And he has a way of really bringing out the nuances and highlighting stuff you never noticed about it. And you say, okay, I see it. And then he writes about it and breaks it down and you're like, oh my God, there's so much more to that than I ever would have thought. And it's absolutely brilliant. So, it, so that's a good place to start.
Yeah, I can, if I can interrupt you here, that's really nice to know. And they had this weekend from Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, they had this 3 day seminar about this BIM initiative, BIM Excellence Seminar over 3 days. You can find it. It was online live. I did not have time to see in the weekend, but I seen it on Friday. It was really, really nice.
Uh, Yeah, no, I was on that invite, and yeah, just being the weekends, I have some prior commitments, so that's kind of hard to do during the
Yeah,
weekend. But
but you can, yeah, you can find it also. I will watch these days as well. The 2 other days I did not see, and moreover, I will have him as a guest. He's booked for the next weeks, so that's going to be really
oh,
exciting.
okay, well, tell him I don't know if he'll remember me, but tell him because his lectures used to occur at 4 a.m. Chicago time, so I would
Oi.
actually get out. I would actually get out of bed to watch this. That's how they get the word. So any of your viewers tune into his; they're well worth it. But back to your question, seriously, anyone who's looking to understand BIM better, the first thing they should do is get their hands on a copy of the ISO 19650, which is the global BIM standard. And now that's, it's through the ISO organization, and it's really being owned by the BSI, the British Standards Institute. And the first thing everyone says to me, well, that's British. Well, for whatever weird reason, the BSI has offices worldwide, and they have an office in the U.S. And they are starting to do ISO certification in the U.S. And I spoke to someone there a few weeks ago, and apparently there's quite a strong interest in firms getting certified in that, and they're talking about creating some sort of individual certification. So if you're serious about BIM, that's something you should look into. It seems early days for that, but it's definitely taking hold. And that, I mean, because that's key, because we're talking about BIM, we're talking about process. That is the process. If you don't know that, you're really just making things up, and that only creates problems.
Yeah, that's right. What do you think about building smart?
But well, I was a member. So through Building Smart, I was a member of the, I don't know, version 3 of the United States BIM standards some years ago. So I was definitely, my name is on that. I'm very proud of that. I think it's a great organization that it seems like they have a higher profile in the rest of the world. In the U.S., the they don't get as much airtime as they deserve, because I mean they own Kobe, they own IFC, and they're doing many wonderful things out there that people need to be aware of. So if you're not, everyone should check into it, because their website is a source of knowledge. And I think, and then really at the end of the day, much of this open BIM agnostic stuff, they're the ones that own it. And so it's important to understand what their role is and how this impacts all of us moving forward too. So yeah, I've nothing but good things to say about building smart.
Yeah, but exactly that, as you said, in Europe they are more better known about, but I still think there is room to improvement, and not only that, but I think actually this pandemic has helped them, because they got I find out about them during this time. I knew about building smart, but I had enough time to dive deeper into things and investigate a little bit and see exactly what is there, right? Because before it was focused on conferences. I did not travel to Singapore or where they were, or in US, to a conference, right? But now they got to such a larger audience, right? Because they published all the webinars. They had a lot of webinars and they published everything online, right? So I got the chance to watch maybe 20 webinars during May and June or more, and it was really nice. I learned about many things there, and I think this helped. But yeah, I still think it's but they have also they are starting right now, and maybe they still have limited resources, right? But yeah, it's getting maybe more traction.
Okay, well that's good to hear. And yeah, when I was in there, it seemed, well, there's always a question of resources for anything, but it seemed in the U.S. in particular like they were hurting, and that certainly prevented them from doing, other things. But like I said, I'm really speculating there. That was just my impression. And then I was, I was working with them, and then I got into grad school, so I didn't have time for that anymore. So that's really where that ended. But moving forward, I still keep in touch with some of the people from that group. We just have to see what develops.
Yeah, there have been, I think it's finished now, as well, a series of webinars. How was that called? The Festival of Bim. I think it was organized by someone in New York, but of course it has been online because of the current situation. And that was also a kind of good festival of webinars.
Okay. Now, back at the beginning of May, I was on a panel presentation for that, and then I also gave a solo presentation on the EIR document. And the feedback from that was pretty good. So yeah, kudos to those people. They really threw something pretty amazing together at the last minute, and they were working like mad to make it happen. I can tell you that. Um, yeah, a lot of interesting things, and we're talking about goes back to about how do we get the owners up to speed and how do we help them. So the point of my presentation there was focused on excuse me, it's the exchange information requirements document now. So really walking through people in a bit more detail about what goes in there and how do they put it together, and really in doing so you're not just drafting a document, but it becomes an exercise in thinking through what it is you're trying to accomplish anyways. So you sort of just go through the mental process and say, well, okay, I think we want to do this because we want this and this, and you come to the end and you can say, oh wait, no, that's not what we're trying to do at all, because sometimes something sounds cool, but then you get there, it's like, no, this has nothing to do with our operations. Then you can go back and refine it. And it's just, again, that mental exercise. Let's think it through. And as we commit it to paper, and then we said, well, yes, you know what? We do have issues because it's difficult going out to work on these assets and having the information in hand. And whenever our techs are out there, they say, well, they got to run back to the office because they don't have this information. So great, then we can put that in and we understand what we need to do. We want to do life cycle costing, so let's jot that in, and all this stuff. And then you have this finished document, and then you hand it to your project team and say, this is what we need you to provide. And they go, oh, okay, we can do that. So yeah, that's one piece of the puzzle. But when I'm working with clients, let's say the most labor intensive thing I'm going to do is write an EIR, because that's a very thick, bulky, technical document. And the catch is it has to have every fact and figure you need in there. So you can't leave anything kind of vague or open ended, because this is like, because maybe there's an earlier strategy document to say, well, okay, we're gonna think about X, Y, and Z. Well, this is a place where we define X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Uh,
Exchange information requirements. You said it's the acronym for this.
Yes, so it was called the Employer's Information Requirements and the BS 1192 standards. And when it got converted to the ISO, I guess they decided that calling it Exchange Information Requirements was a bit more global friendly, whatever.
Broader. Yeah.
Because it is a very awkward name. And, whenever I say it, people look at me kind of weird. But I mean, but that is the document. And what's actually, since we're talking about this, so most people out there understand what a BIM execution plan is, because any project these days, whether it's actually BIM or not, someone's writing one up, and it's just about 3D modeling and whatnot. But the message that hasn't gotten out is that the BIM execution plan is written as a direct response to the EIR. So if you don't have an EIR, whatever you put in your BEP, you're making things up. And again, every owner should be sitting there thinking, well, wait a minute, that's not a very good way to be going about this. We don't want people to just making things up. We're investing this capital because we have very real business uses here, and we need to accomplish something. We're not going to spend $20 million just because it seems like a cool idea. We're trying to get to a better place. We need this facility to support our business growth and give us a place to do what we need to do. So that's why we need to define this. And then we're going to put that out, and the project team is going to write a BIM execution plan in response. And then the owner is going to sign off on that and say, yes, the BEP, what you detailed there tells me that you can meet the requirements in the EIR. So it's this call and response thing where everyone's in sync. So it has to start with the EIR, and that has to be written by the owner. Again, there was a client that said, well, won't my architect do that for me? It's like, well, is your architect going to come by and change your lights when they go out? It's like, that's just, I mean, if they do, that's pretty nice, but is that what you want them focused on? You're paying an architect to focus on certain things. And then you have other stuff going on that, maybe they're not the most qualified or the best suited for that. So you think, okay, why don't we just leave our architect to stick to the design here? and then our operations will handle ourselves. And the EIR is really part of your operations.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. I think most of the organizations that have EIR is because they have people interested in BIM, and they have been exposed in a way or another. Like the ones who doesn't have people passionate or maybe willing to learn more about this will get a little bit harder the information too.
Well, that's exactly it. But at some point, you know, when they come to the conclusion that this is the right move for their operational model, I mean, that's what you need to do. You know, so I mentioned years ago I worked in manufacturing, and so I was doing consumer products. And so down in the state of Mississippi, the company had opened a new plant, and they said, well, we need to, you know, improve our production of these specific products. So they invested, you know, into two automated assembly lines that cost $1 million each. They say, well, in order to do this is the investment we have to make. So for any owner, if they want to invest in BIM to improve their operations, part of that investment is writing their own EIR, or really you have me write it for you, but you sit down with me. But it's not something you do, you know, willy-nilly.
Yeah.
And that, you know, and yes, you are going to have to buy some sort of software at the end. You are going to have to train your people and all this other stuff. But again, it's not one single thing. It's all pieces of the same puzzle.
And it's very difficult when you must train people that are not willing or requiring this, you know.
Oh,
Sometimes goes the ownership might take this step or jump because of the a group of employees, right? Like if they pushing, they showing like this, we should do this way we can use this, and we can have these benefits if we do this, right? But if you have people that are not very willing to learn and such, I don't know. I talk mostly about smaller companies, right? If you have bigger companies, and yeah, if you just you just set out some rules, and yeah, it becomes like you do it or not. You don't have a choice. But it's easier when you have people willing to learn, more open to new things, right?
yeah. Well, you know, back at Middlesex, that was something we would talk about often in our lectures, you know, because of course, uh, again, you can buy all the tools, but if they're just sitting there collecting dust, they're not good. It's really about people and change management. But, you know, that's not exclusive to BIM. That goes for anything. But the BIM component in particular is a heavy lift, and you're asking people to change a lot. So you have to be very patient and persistent until you get over that hump and they see the benefits. Then, it seems that once you get past that point, it sort of becomes self-perpetuating.
Yeah, yeah, and I think this is also coming with a generational shift. Like it becomes quicker also because the students, the graduates now, they when they come out of the school, they they have another mindset. They have they have a much more modern mindset, right? And they are used to use all the most modern tools, and this helps as well, right? So we as a parts of the industry right now, or the employers need to think about this as well, because it's a little bit like I heard about someone talking about this here in Norway. Like you get people getting students coming out of the school, uh, knowing how to I let's talk about design, right? They know how to use Revit, they know how to use Dynamo, Grasshopper. They do lots of cool stuff, right? And you hire them to make drawings for you. That is something very inefficient. But inevitably, like at this point each year, like we get some of the seniors outside of our industry, right? And we get new people, and we get to a point where we get more new people with new mindset, right? And
Right.
is going to help. But yeah, it's 1 year at a time.
Well, yeah, yeah, and again, if we're we're talking about modern BIM processes. If we go back to the beginning, something like Project Avante only began in 2001. So that's, 19 years, which is nothing. So, perhaps you and I are way out there at the front edge, but even, one of the hard things for me was after spending 2.5 years on a master's degree, just having my head in that so deep for so long, was I had to come out and say, oh, wait, like no one is remotely close to where I am now. Because what I do for 2 years? I was in this classroom with 50 other people, and all we did was talk about the cusp of BIM, and the rest of the world was not. You know,
Yeah,
so so you have to roll back your expectations and sort of get recentered on that. But everything I'm saying though, because we're here talking, because BIM still has come so far, and I have no concerns that it's going to get to where it needs to. So what I'm trying to do is make that ride smoother for people and help those that want to help them out, because it isn't, again, this isn't about trying to sell people on something. It's about, there's people out there that want to do this and want to improve because they know it does work, but they don't necessarily have all the knowledge and exactly what it is they need to do. And that's really where I come into play. Let's just make your life easier. Let's make it happen. And as that progresses, become a much more common thing, and we'll see where it goes. And
yeah,
maybe by then I'll be on to whatever the next thing is. Who knows? But I think BIM can keep me busy for quite a few years to come. I'm not concerned about that either.
yeah. And now regarding the resources, like you said, you made this masters program, but right now, like it gets more mainstream also as resources, right? We get more universities offering maybe BIM uh, studies, and more organizations offering courses and such. So yeah, but it's not a exact or very precise science. That's the pinch of salt we need to swallow this with. Like it's what I see becoming more and more important. It's the philosophical aspect, and not and taking the time and having the patience, right? Like this is also a challenge with BIM, but this is also something that it makes it's exciting for me, because it's not just, yeah, you say BIM is this and everybody understand that. Like you said, like this ISO says that, yeah, you need to have this reinforcement in this slab or something, right? It's not something so precise. And this has been the big one of the biggest challenges, right? Because many people have made the mistake to think, yeah, BIM is 3D model. Like you said, people maybe started with that, right? And even right now, I see a lot of people believing that, and it's no wrong in that, because a 3D model is very important part of BIM, right? But it's not complete. It doesn't tell the whole story. And yeah, it's really nice to have and find actually people to be able to talk like this. This is something that really excites me about this.
Oh, well, thank you. No, no, it is good, because sometimes, again, like I said, I went in so deep so quickly on this topic. Sometimes it's it can be a challenge too. It's there are days where like I imagine it's like someone learns to speak Latin fluently, and wow, that's awesome, that's really cool. But how many other Latin speakers are there out there some days? It's like, well, okay, what can I really do with this? And but the good news with BIM is we're seeing we can do more and more, because people want our people interested. And everyone's entry point really is the 3D model. That's fine, that's great,
Yeah,
because even as basic as that is, has already advanced the industry so much and solved so many problems. And this goes back to me being an apprentice cabinet maker out in the field, because what people don't realize, in design, everyone's focused on the big things, and I mean objects that are physically large. Because okay, we have this massive piece of something and it has to get in here, so we have to plan that we're going to maneuver it into place before the windows are put in. It's like, okay, so everyone sorts that. But what they really don't get is that it's the tiny things, and I mean physically tiny, that cause you the greatest problems and expense. And if I could tell you the number of times as a carpenter in the field where the cover plate to an electrical box caused an absolute nightmare, a lot of screaming and ridiculous change orders. It all begins with that cover plate that costs, 69 cents at the hardware store. And it's just that simple. Just by having that positioned properly in 3D, that would have eliminated half my problems as a carpenter. And we didn't have that then. So that's, some years later when I saw it, I'm like, yes, this is the most logical, sensible thing I've ever seen. And that's why I wanted to be part of it. But that's the reality of it. And I still see that even projects I work on now. So I got to be a bit vague about it, but I was working on a massive project for one of the biggest companies in the world. And so there was extremely heavy 3D coordination going on. I mean, they were, they would not let up on it, but they did this thing where they said, we're only going to do things that are physically large. And so the security systems were not designed in 3D. They were done in 2D.
Oh,
And when it got out to the field, literally every single camera and every single card reader did not go where it could. Walls were being ripped open. Door swings had to change. It simply did not work. And these were massive change orders coming back. Just because, yeah, it's a card reader. Put it on the wall in 3D. What's the big deal? Well, because by not doing that, they say, well, because it's just a 3/4 inch conduit, so it's small, so it's easy. Well, no, it turned out it was physically not possible to route the 3/4 inch conduit there. So that's why you want to model that in 3D. Because then you could say, you know what, people, we've got a problem here. As trivial as this sounds, we're going to be ripping this wall open after it's been painted because we can't put our card reader on the wall where we want it. And people get furious about that. And it's all 100% preventable.
but it's very silly, to be honest. What's you you don't save, like, this is the big, very important step you need to do. Like, you need to know where you need holes and everything. I don't see I don't find this problem here, actually.
Oh, well, that's good. Well, here what I see is that people, they're doing this under the guise that they're somehow saving work when in fact they're not, because as we saw in this project where everything had to be ripped out and redesigned in the whole point of doing 3D coordination is to not have to redesign in the field.
Exactly.
And then,
It defeats the purpose.
But that's what they say. But they're doing the stuff where they say, well, okay, we're only going to do conduits 4 inches or larger. It's like, well, yes, that those are big, but there's far more conduits that are an inch or smaller that need to get positioned too. And but that's what I'm seeing too. People don't fully understand this or the ramifications. You can't do it halfway, because eventually everything has to go into your building. Everything has to be positioned, and it's and again, that's me being a carpenter, because once that electrical box has been committed, it is a massive problem to move it. Because by the time I come in and I'm doing millwork, I was one of the very last guys on every single project. So if I flag a problem that it happened a year ago, people weren't happy. And then it also came, well, suddenly I couldn't do my job that day. So that put my boss in a lurch. And, because we have a schedule to keep too. And it just snowballs. So yeah, I guess even when we're talking about BIM at the most basic 3D coordination level, it has to be coordinated. You can't only coordinate some things.
Yeah, exactly. That is a very obvious proof that they don't understand why they used it, why they do this. It's like in your face. You cannot go, like, it's not about the size of the object. It's about to know how will they fit together. It doesn't matter if it's a block of concrete of 20 meters and 2 meters thick. It's not about that. Like, you need to know how you are going to fit this, because it might be much easier to have a hole, like to build a hole with formwork before than uh, taking it through the wall, right? So small things that can amount to many resources and time saved in the project. This is sounds really crazy. And now this is really interesting. Right now, I'm a civil engineer. I work mostly with concrete, with bridges through my career. But right now I work on a project, and I work with security, like you said, telecommunication with cameras and speakers and such, right? And even if we deliver on this project, uh, we deliver drawings. I have a 3D model that I need to update, and I need to check my drawings that they conform with the 3D model.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it all has together at some point, and I guess to really tie this together. So I was talking about our EIR document a few minutes ago, and that's
Yeah.
something I would put in there specifically. So I'm not going to leave it up to the contractor to design what they get to model. It's about me saying, no, you have to model this stuff. This isn't optional, just because it's physically small. And then, like, in the technology world, we talk a lot about smart buildings and stuff. So you're going to have tiny little sensors and things on the wall to make that BMS system work. Well, it's physically tiny, but you have to make sure that it can go there and it has the right clearances it needs to operate. So what's more important, that something is physically large, or that something can function correctly and you have access to it? So
Yeah.
so I don't see people thinking through these things all the way, because everything has to get there somehow. Everything has to function properly, and sometimes the most important thing isn't always the physically largest thing.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
are
No.
those are judgment calls, really.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. And this is focused on the discipline they work with mostly. This might be the inclination of a contractor that works mostly, like they will have someone else doing the MEP, right, or something else. But it's a growing pain. Let us just put it like a growing pain. They will just learn from this, like, because it's not so different if you do it this way than from the original old way of doing things, right? Because you don't avoid those clashes. If
Right.
if you don't use the 3D model to avoid clashes, then you just you did not use that, right? It's
No, you're right. It is a growing pain, but it's still something that just people haven't arrived at that conclusion yet. So again,
yeah,
hopefully the takeaway from you and I and other people out there is helping them understand this.
yeah,
Because we're just bringing that general awareness. Whatever we can do.
yeah, exactly. For the people that are a little bit deeper in BIM, are there other resources like this, like the webinars and the courses and standards? Like, it's good to make a general idea about and learn more, right? And get to know a little bit the surface, or yeah, or even more, but it's not very specific. Like, do you have any resources that you can go deeper in a specific area or level, like some courses that might uh, teach you how to, I don't know, how to implement a BIM strategy in your company? Or do you need a master's degree for that, or do you find shorter courses, or courses, for example, for other skills like how to use Revit or something, or yeah, this kind of resources?
Okay. Well, as far as software training, I would say, leave that to the vendors, because they'll offer whatever training, because that's a very specific thing depending on your role and your company, what is you're trying to do. But if we're talking about BIM, so the BSI, who is handling the ISO standards, they're offering, I know they offer, like, you know, some sort of 2 and 3 day, like, very intensive courses on that. I haven't attended to them, so I can't speak to them. But just, the total crash course immersion type thing. Um, there is, like, just this year, there's a new certification out on Kobe, which, from what everything I'm hearing about, it's very heavy duty and it's very worthwhile. I would be doing that right now, but just due to COVID, there's a temporary freeze on all spending because just because that's the state of the world right now. But once
Yeah.
things loosen up, I'll be working on that, and that's the sort of thing where you have to take a few classes, and it's really things like that. So I'm less concerned about the software because the software is relative to what is your job today, like right at this moment, and then you have to learn how to adapt it to whatever it is.
Yeah.
So that you learn as you go. But it's, I would anything that's out there being offered on the ISO 19650 and the process, the Kobe, and things like that. The proper training. So it's actually then there's going the university level like I did, which is which was an amazingly spectacular program. I cannot say enough good things about it, but the reality is that's far more than most people ever want or need. You have to be a little nutty to go off that end. But the program at Middlesex, run by Dr. Noah Salib, I mean, if you're serious about it, check it out. The group I was in, we covered 18 time zones, and you really have access to just so many talented people across the globe, and that's a network where we don't chat as much as we did when we were in class. But I have a WhatsApp on my phone with the user group, and from time to time we give each other a little poke. So you already have that built-in network, and that puts you in touch with the people who are doing this stuff for real. And that's key too, because it's like, okay, there's an awful lot of stuff on the internet, but how do I get to the right stuff? And that even
Yeah.
that takes some trial and error to recognize, okay, who really knows what they're talking about here. But you're gonna have Bilal on next week, so he's as
Yeah,
good a place as any.
it's not next week, but
Oh,
in one of the next episodes.
okay, my bad, not next week,
No,
but
it's fine.
but he's in the queue.
Yeah,
He's in the
yeah,
queue.
sure.
So individuals like that, it's fine. Okay, like, yeah, this guy's for real. So the joy of the internet is there are plenty of resources out there, but of course there's a lot of nonsense too. And then anything the UK government has put out on BIM, like in an official capacity, I mean, that's really the epicenter of everything we're doing. What people don't realize it, but everything we're doing comes from all that. There's bits and pieces here and there, but
Yeah.
I'd say that's worth your time.
How can someone get in touch with you if they want to ask you something or
Uh, d- Drop me an email, andrew.baranowski@arup.com, or find me on LinkedIn. I would say many people do, and I do my best to get back to people in a timely fashion. Just because of life, sometimes it takes me a little while, but I'm always glad to chat with you. So yeah, LinkedIn is probably the easiest, most direct way.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, and of course, and if you're looking for consulting services, please contact me directly at Arup.
Yeah, sure. Like, do you used to have international customers as well, or do you
What
have only customers from US?
it changes a bit, but I think we're in 90 countries, 140 offices or something like that right now. The US is actually one of our smallest markets. So, I mean, being based in Chicago, dealing, I'm, I deal primarily with US customers, but I'm very eager to deal with people all over the world. And I can tell you that over the last couple of weeks, I've had colleagues from Vietnam, Turkey, and Bristol, England reach out to me for help with things they're doing with clients in regards to this too. So,
Okay.
wherever you are in the world, yeah, I mean, the only trick sometimes is time zones when,
Yeah.
the whole Vietnam was exactly 12 hours ahead of me. So that just makes it a little difficult sometimes. But anywhere else, yeah, please drop me a line. Don't think you have to be in the US because BIM is global.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you are in the world.
Yeah, this is another interesting part. Yeah, that it forces us to think overboard, not borders. Not only like we need to expand our mindset as well, and to see the big picture. I will challenge you to do something. You
All
wrote,
right.
I don't know if it's been right after you finished the study or you wrote that article on LinkedIn, Really interesting. I really like that article, and this is the reason I invited you to this podcast. We did not talk about that, but we discussed about the many points you wrote about in that article.
Okay.
I would like to challenge you to write a new one now, and like, how do you feel the things are going right now compared to how you felt when you wrote that article?
Okay. All right. Give me a little time to let it percolate in my head, and
Sure, sure. No hurry, no hurry. But like a project by the end of this year or something.
and okay, that's reasonable. That's reasonable. So okay, you're right. I guess in a way I did leave that hanging, so maybe we should give it some closure there, because anyone who's gone to grad school knows when you submit that thesis and you're done, it's that's wow. I mean, that's really hitting the brick wall, and your whole body just sort of crashes. You're like, oh my god, I just finished that. Wow. So yeah, maybe wrap. Because now I'm on the far end and I have some reasonable perspective on what I did and what I accomplished. And
experience.
I'm here talking to you in Norway, which is, hey, that's pretty cool in itself.
Yeah. No, but now I mean, like, right now you also have experience from real customers, and I
Yes,
want
I
to
do.
see how this goes, because when you wrote that article, you mostly it was mostly theoretical or feelings. Right now you have the data as well, and that's why I'm really interested to see how you would you shape the new
Okay.
state of things.
All right. Well, I will start thinking about that, and I'll have to go review that article and
Yeah, sure.
try and craft it, and so it's in context with it. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much for coming along, Andrew. It was really nice
All right.
to talk to you.
Thank you so much for the invite, Petru. Let's stay in touch, and I look forward to more from you soon.
Definitely.